What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Art of War stream. This time it is the weekly Fix My List, and in this one we're going to be focusing on the Xenos factions. So Jack and I are here going to be working through some of the factions that we know and love for Xenos.
Right.
And every single week we do Fix My List, and in that you can submit your list if you're a War Room member. That's on our thewarroom.vhx.tv. Or if you sign up on any of the tiered memberships on YouTube, you get access to our Discord community. And in there, in the War Room channels, is a Fix My List channel. Every single week, we'll have a theme. You'll get to submit your list, and we'll pick 3 of those lists. And usually we go back a couple weeks, too, to make sure that we haven't skipped anybody. So, if you posted it in the last couple weeks, we still go back and check those and grab them.
But not everybody will get their list fixed. Unfortunately, there's just so much hype for it that we get more list submissions than we can actually do if we were to do all of them.
Yep.
But if you want to get them in, you go to, as you said, the Fix My List channel. So unfortunately, Alex Astro in our chat, it is too late for this week, but it is not too late for next week.
So the whole point of this series is to, you go ahead and submit lists, and we work through the thought process of trying to change these lists in ways that you're after. So maybe you play in particular terrain formats, or you play in a particular meta with these certain armies, or you're having trouble against these types of archetypes. Then we're going to come in here with that knowledge and try and adjust the list to help you.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're not in our Discord and you're like, damn, how am I going to submit a list? Because I would like to get my list fixed on Art of War. Well, it's very simple. If you're not in the War Room, you can join the War Room. It's in the link below. It's thewarroom.vhx.tv, but I understand that's a bit of a mouthful, so there's a link down in the description. And there's a 3-day free trial, which means you can try everything out without without having to pay. See what you think. Submit your list for Fix My List. Check out our masterclasses for your faction. Check out your Know Thy Enemies. Check out my new series, Jack Theory.
Yep, we have 3 battle reports every single week, all focusing on top tier matchups. So, if you want to check any of that out, go ahead and try it. In addition, if you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and leave a comment below. All of that massively helps with that YouTube algorithm. And in addition, go ahead and just tell us what you think of the lists as we fix them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get right into it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh!
Tiny Jack.
No!
Tiny Jack. Somehow that scene is active. I don't know how that was created.
I don't know how. I don't know why.
But we just were flipping through the scenes on OBS. I'm like, what is that? That's funny.
All right. So if you want to read out what's in this list, I'll go pull up any comments that they have.
Yep. So this is from Aranok. He has submitted a Leagues of Votann list. And going through the list, we've got an Einhir champion. It's got the teleport crest and the Darkstar axe. So very good at kind of just chopping away at cheap MSU type of units, but is likely going to join a squad here potentially. Grimnir, he has Appraising Glare, which is a fantastic enhancement. In my opinion, the best enhancement that Votann has.
Is that the pick an objective every turn, and everything on that objective counts as having 1 additional judgment?
Yep, your opponent has to... you pick an objective your opponent controls in your command phase, and you can do it from reserve, which is cool. So you pick that objective and +1 judgment token. So if they have 0, they go to 1. If they have 1, they go to 2. It's very, very strong. 20 points there. And then we have the Call with a Long List. That means when his unit kills something, you can pick a different enemy unit within line of sight and place an additional judgment token on them. So very good against MSU armies. I typically don't run it, but we'll get into that in a bit. 10 Hearthkin Warriors with 2 of the gun upgrades. 6 Sagittars.
Yep,
the
solid 6.
High Las Beam Cannons. Either they're going to roll 6s or they're not. And if they roll 6s, boy, do they do a lot of damage. Jack was watching me just destroy John's aggressor squad from just
Yeah, it's the casino cannon. But on average, they do good work. So you take 6 of them, which means the average pans out across an entire turn. Usually.
And it's just an outstanding package. Yeah. Then you've got 10 Einhir Hearthguard. This is your kind of volume of fire unit, and it's also one of the most durable units that Votann can put out there, so great for surviving on objectives. Then 2 Berserk squads. I'm going to assume they have all the different free upgrades that they do.
They did, yes.
Yep, yes. So you get the extra guy with the little indirect gun, which can put a debuff on an enemy unit. and they're pretty solid in combat. Although they really wish they had rerolls. Then we've got 3, 6, and 6 Hernkin Pioneers. These are the bikes. They're very fast. They're efficient. You got double high las in the 6-mans, the scanner to ignore cover, and that searchlight. So really a lot of pregame moves here. You got the 6-inch move on those Sagittars, and then the 9-inch on the Pioneers. So this army can get into the middle very quickly.
Yes, I remember why I picked this one. The title is Go, Go, Go. And the notes are, well, I guess scroll down a lot. All right. Quickly run at the opponent with Scout plus 12-inch movement. I don't know if I've got enough to hit them hard enough before getting hit back. Mm-hmm. So this is an aggressive Leagues of Votann list that's looking to use Scouts and moves and a lot of units to do damage to people.
Yep. So very strong archetype here. All of these units are good. There's nothing in here that I'm like, except for Berserks, where I'm like questionable.
Berserks are maybe getting a little of the...
So people have been running them. I know my coaching client, Nick Keever, has been running them to good success. His team won the recent ATC, and he was playing Votann. He had some Berserks in there, and wasn't really using them as actually trying to hit the target, but as threat projection. As this is a combat unit that could pop out of the Sagittar, go and hit something and do some damage, and it just forces your opponent to think a little more carefully about placing their things up there.
Yeah.
However, I think the top armies have enough screens where they don't really care, or they have some shenanigan. So you got Space Marine Vanguard, where they're like, okay, you ended a move within 9, I'm going to move. Or, sorry, that's the Gladius.
That's the Gladius. The Vanguard is when you declare the charge.
When you declare the charge, then they move, and if it's Phobos, you get the flat 6. It's a nightmare. So slow charging units, which is a unit that moves 5 inches and then declares a charge.
Even out of a transport.
If you really want the threat projection, you can run 1. But personally, I think we're going to go for a different direction on this.
They're also not amazing in combat. So you get the +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and then they do decent work. But even so, it's going to be like 12 attacks. They hit on 3s.
But let's just say, let's say they respect the Berserks, because they remember 9th edition, and these guys could hit absurdly hard back then. All right, so they're respecting the Berserks. They're still not going to leave their good unit there. They're going to leave the 10 Crude or some nonsense unit that is screening, or a transport.
It's also not unreasonable that the Berserks pop out and then a squad of like intercessors or whatever puts 2 or 3 of them away. Yeah. That's not impossible.
But if they're using a screen unit...
Just in shooting.
If they use the screen unit, you're not going to have 2 judgment tokens, so you're not getting the +1 to hit and +1 to wound. You're probably getting none of that, which means they're going to do basically no damage.
Very unreliable. They're slow. They're melee for the sake of saying that you have melee. And I don't really like taking that. Mm-hmm. I get why it's there.
The other reason to run 1 is the fact that they do have that indirect fire gun, which, forget about damage, it doesn't do any damage. But what it does do is, I believe it's against enemy infantry units. You can -2 to move and charge.
-2 move, advance, and charge on a 4-up against non-monsters and vehicles.
Yeah, so it's still on a 4-up.
And you have to hit them. You have to hit them, then you have to roll the 4-up, and then they're slowed.
And you're hitting on likely 5s.
Yep, so ranged weapon Mole Launcher is going to hit on 5s indirect. It's also D6 shots, so like it's very possible you just like roll 2 on shots, and then you have 3 shots against the blast target, and you just happen to miss, and then you're like, damn. Or you hit and you roll a 3, and you don't slow them down.
If this was an auto version of this type of roll, like Night Spinners, which obviously is a better roll because it stops from advancing, but if it was automatic like that, pretty much, because you have easy rerolls.
Yeah, or like Basilisks or things like that.
Then I would like it more as a tech piece, just to have one of them in there. But I still think it's so unreliable that this unit just isn't very good. And I think it's the first thing that we cut is both of them.
I would absolutely say that. Here's my thought, and you can tell me what you think, about an aggressive Leagues of Votann list. Mm-hmm. The idea is you have a lot of units that all do some damage, all pressuring your opponent, all at the same time. And none of them are too threatening, and none of them are too durable, but there's so many of them that the damage adds up, and the durability adds up because you focus your fire, you overkill a Sagittar, but then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th one doesn't get dealt with. Especially since Sagittars are tough as 10, it's really annoying to deal with that at speed.
Yep.
And that's what I'm looking to do. And in that kind of a paradigm where we're trying to overwhelm our opponent with amount of stuff that all kind of does damage, we don't have room for weak links.
Yep.
And I think that those units are 200 points of not going to do very much in most games.
In most games. And even if you're just advancing those Sagittars directly up, like I said, your opponent, if they even respect if they respected the threat range of Berserks, they're still going to use a screen. They're going to just move block them.
Yeah.
And then they hit the screen, and then they die.
They also die so fast that you really don't have to worry about killing them and something else. Everything here is some amount of durable, whether it's a Sagittar toughness 10, which is just annoying to deal with in multiple places. The Pioneers are still toughness, 6?
T6.
T6. The Hearthguard are T6 with -1 to wound.
If the strength is greater.
Yep. Hearthguard Warriors are toughness 5. But then everything has like an armor save, and then with cover, it's all like slightly more annoying than you want to kill. And then there's the Berserks, where you can just be like, bye. And that's just something we can't have. Speaking of which, I think I like 3 Pioneers. I'm not 100% certain if I like 6, because it puts too many eggs in one basket for our opponent to kill.
So I believe Danny from Team Poland has been running a lot of Pioneers.
Okay.
And I believe there are a couple other people who have increasingly ramped up the number of Pioneers that they've been running. And that is because they are playing Votann not as a control arm, not as a like defensive control army, but as a, you just can't, kind of like Orcs, where you just threat overload them in a certain way where they can't kill all of it quick enough.
Yep.
I personally prefer the 3-mans because they still aren't that durable with a 4-up save and 4 wounds on the big guy. They still die pretty quickly, even if you have cover, even if you have the void armor on them, where you're going to probably put it elsewhere, honestly. They still kind of die in droves, is what I've found. But they are amazing with that pregame move, and then they're a 12-inch move, they have fly, so they can get the angles and clear your opponent's chaff. That's what they're trying to do, is just get rid of all those cheap mission play units, and then all of a sudden 6 Sagittars are also in the center.
Yeah.
What do you deal with?
So I'll be honest, I really like that playstyle. It's kind of the playstyle of Harlequins right at the end of 9th.
Yeah.
Where you would just swarm people with tons of boats and units that none of them did a ton of damage, but you would just get sandpapered away. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't deal with that many units all at the same time. I love that playstyle. I think it's great. I would be lying if I said that I didn't consider asking you if I could borrow your Votann for the finals. I really did. I came up with the list that I ended up taking, at like 2 a.m. one morning. But like before that, I was legitimately saying like, hey, I was legitimately thinking like, hey, can I take your Votann?
This is a good army. So I think we actually keep them because based on what they said in their description, they want to play this aggressively.
So here's my thought, right? I think we're absolutely making this an aggressive, rush you down, kill you, like the Harlequins from the end of 9th, with the 8 boats or whatever. I absolutely think we do that. But I think we can do that without putting so many points into... Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to give my opponent... You shove your opponent and you hand your opponent like 180 points of Pioneers in one place to hit. Mm-hmm. I want the... I don't have as much experience as the people who are putting large units of Pioneers, but in my mind, what I'm thinking is that 3 units of 3 just push up, go to the corners, and then push towards my opponent, and just start picking up 5-man Hawks, 5-man Warp Spiders, things like that. They never try to punch up. They just scoop all of your opponent's nonsense at light speed, and that's all I want from them. And then they can still push, they can tag, they can hold objectives, things like that.
One of the reasons the 6-man is in this list is because it's one of the few one single activation of damage that has ignores cover, which is very rare in Votann. It's basically the troops get the scanner, the bikes can get the scanner, and then the land fort can get the scanner. But nothing else has that. So they perform a role here where you have an activation that's quite large, with a lot of shots, that is able to ignore cover. Now, the thing I like about the 3-mans is if you play them aggressively, they're still giant bases and 2-inch coherence, so you can actually just move block your opponent while moving all your Sagittars safely up.
Yeah.
So
there's also every possibility that you jam 6 Sagittars straight into your opponent, but at the same time, you take your Pioneers and you just start tagging stuff. Mm-hmm. And so then it can't activate properly. Like, if you just start charging things like, Lancers and Forge Fiends, things like that. Suddenly they're -1 to hit. They have to spend a CP to fall back and do anything if they want to.
Other things can't shoot into that unit.
Other things can't shoot in. And that just really, as you bear down on them, you just reduce their efficiency by charging them with nonsense throwaway pioneers to set up for the Hearthguard, the Sagittars, things like that.
So I think our question, we can save this to the end, because I think there is a real reason to potentially run the 6-mans in this style list.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and look at the rest of the list, and that will help clarify what we have left remaining, and that can be our last decision.
Sounds right. Okay, so we have the 6 Sagittars, and I think that's the archetype definer. They have Scout. They shoot hard enough that your opponent cannot just tank them to the face turn after turn. They really just can't. Mm-hmm. So you have the 6 Sagittars that are hyper aggressive. This defines the archetype. 6 Sagittars. We can't mess with that at all, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. There are also transports, which really helps because you can start swarming objectives with 5-man Hearthkin Warriors, things like that. Very solid. Also, characters coming out of the Sagittars, quite good. Although, do we want to give up Assassinate? We can give up Assassinate a little more than we are right now.
Yeah.
But then we have the Einhir Hearthguard, the 10-man Hearthguard.
Yep.
So this looks like it's going to be paired with the Call or the Einhir Champion.
Yep, either one can go in there. Probably the Call, because it's one of the strongest activations and it plans to kill things, so a long list there will help. It gets lethal hits from the Call, which doesn't necessarily help the Disintegrator variant, but it's still
I've been overwatched by that before, and I'm like, I might take some mortals, and they're like, don't worry, it's lethal hits. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. You can't decide whether you take them or not, but it does help them punch up against a lot of things. You just put a bunch of saves on stuff. And then the Einhir Champion will give you reroll charges. Frankly, as I've played them more and more, I have leaned harder on the Champion to lead them rather than the Call. And that is because, especially the Disintegrator variant, and that's because I really value the reroll charges. Oftentimes, because Hearthguard are so slow, yes, they can rapid ingress in and then move and then make a charge, but still a savvy opponent isn't going to let you charge anything real if they have screens. So the reroll charge really helps. Make sure that you make the charges and get up the table as quick as possible when you finally come in.
It really does. Now, I will say this kind of list will get a lot more value out of a rapid ingressing Hearthguard unit than maybe a defensive list. Yeah. Because when you're playing defensive, you're not taking as many risks, which is dope, and it has its own benefits. But when you're playing aggressive and you're pushing up the board immediately, you push your opponent back so they don't get to extend screens as much. And you get access to their screens early, which means you get to kill them with your Pioneers, your Sagittars, your what have yous. And that means that they don't have their screens for when the Hearthguard come in and try and deliver actual damage.
Yeah. So my opinion is that the Call can honestly go. His ability to give out a judgment token in the command phase is entirely irrelevant. Nobody is standing out there that's going to get this in the command phase, and if they are, it's a cheap screen that's going to die anyway. So I don't value that very highly.
Yeah. You also get to pick 4 at the start of the game, not 1, which is a huge deal for who starts with 2. And because you're MSU, they're going to be killing a lot of units. I agree with you, I don't think it matters very much that the Call can see stuff. And yes, I understand in the chat right now that if we removed the Call right now, we don't have enough units to fill the Sagittars.
Well, we don't right
Don't
now.
worry, we are not at 2,000 points. We would add something back in.
Yeah. The thing is, right now we have 5 potential things to go in 6. We'll find another one, but the Call can go.
Yeah, I think we have too many characters, which we had too many characters at the start of this. We had a Call and a Champion that wanted to go in the Hearthguard, and then the other one, I'm sure, has a gold here somewhere, but neither of them can join the Berserks.
The Call can go in the Hearthkin Warriors.
Yeah, I would probably avoid that, to be honest with you. So I think the Call's going to go. Do you think we need a long list, or is a long list Call specific?
If we have a weird number of points at the end, we can throw an enhancement back in, but I also don't value it that highly because, like I said, when you kill the stuff in line of sight, there's often not a lot of stuff in line of sight that you then switch over judgment tokens to. I found that one hasn't come up too often, but if you play the Hearthguard very aggressive, maybe it does. So if we have extra points, we'll slot it back in.
Yeah. So do you like the Teleport Crest or the Weavefield Crest?
So we want to be able to deep strike the Hearthguard.
Okay.
And I prefer having the Weavefield Crest on the Sergeant then, and then have him have the teleport crest, but we can have it either direction.
Got it. It doesn't particularly matter. Is there a
if the champion was going to be used solo, then you always go the we field crest. If he's going to join the unit, then it's not as big of a deal.
Got it.
It matters if they try and snipe him out, so we can just put the teleport crest on the Einhir Hearthguard Hezir and put him as the we field crest.
Got it. And he shocks people when he gets into combat, and he hits decently hard himself.
Yep.
Do you have a preference on the axe versus the hammer?
Yeah, we'll give him the hammer because we want to punch up generally with the Hearthguard. If you use them as solo, then I like the Darkstar axe because then they go into like a 5-man unit. He can actually kill most of it. But with the hammer, I'd rather punch up.
Yeah. Not against champions being solo, but they can't go in Sagittars, right? Yeah.
They are in Exo armor.
Okay, so now it's unfortunate that GW has apparently, I mean, not officially ruled it, but for their events, their ruling is that ignoring modifiers does not ignore AP reduction or damage reduction. So I don't think it's that great.
So the Grim Demeanor gives you reroll Battle Shock tests, and this army is terrible at Battle Shock because they're all leadership 7 except for the Grimnir, who's leadership 6 and can once per game auto pass.
Are the Hearthguard leadership 7?
Nope, everything's 7. Yeah, everything's 7.
Yeah.
Besides the Grimnir.
Incredible.
So reroll Battle Shock on them is nice. You also ignore minuses to hit, minus to wound. So there is some benefit to it. In addition, movement modifiers, getting hit by -2 move and moving 3 doesn't feel great. So once again, I think it is a luxury upgrade, like a long list, and we'll see how many points we have at the end to slot in. Because Votann lists often have a weird number of points left over.
Okay, so currently with the list as we have it right here, we have almost 300 points. We have 285. So, with that in mind, we do need to fill some Sagittars. I assume a Grimnir is just going in a Sagittar.
Yep.
Do we want Appraising Glare on a guy in a transport, or is he going to be getting out immediately?
He's often going to get out and just be hanging around somewhere. So I'm not too worried about that one, but we could also just put it on the Einhir champion if he doesn't have another upgrade, and that's fine.
Yeah. I like 2 units of Hearthkin Warriors because I think 20 of them is about the right number. You can kick them out onto objectives really easily, take them away, which as part of the pressure build, you get access to your opponent's objectives. Just take your opponent's objectives away every turn. Make sure they don't get points.
So I know most people have switched over for the Warriors to have all of the combat weapons instead of any of the special guns. I still like the High Las Auto Rifle because it gives you that assault keyword, which I like. And it's just a decent number of shots. But the Magnarel can go. That thing never hits. It's not going to do anything. Just put the combat in.
How many combat weapons do you get?
If you read down there...
up to 2 can get a kin melee weapon, and then the Thane can get a kin melee weapon. So you can get 3 melee weapons per 10?
I like 2 plus the High Las. That's what I lean towards.
2 melee weapons.
Because frankly, as cool as the Magna Rail is, it just is not going to do anything whatsoever. And I'm really taking the high las to get assault in the unit to advance and do actions.
Okay, so here we have 285 left. We can do a number of things. We need one more thing to go in a Sagittar, which to my mind is probably a Grimnir.
So we've got options here for playing aggressive. We can put 1 land fort in here and put... So in the land fort, we could go back to the Berserks. We already explained why we wouldn't do that. We can put 5 Hearthguard in there, and that's a early sort of pressure. You pop out, you move the land fort up, you pop out the Hearthguard, you hit something, they reroll wounds now, and so you get quite a bit more disintegrator damage from them. Or we could put more Einhir champions in there, and all of a sudden 3 of them pop out. It's on a 2-up, 3D3, 3 2-ups, 3D3 mortals. Yeah. Or potentially more if you rolled a 6.
Just like dropping out of reserves.
And then they hit reasonably... No, out of the land fort.
Oh, out of the land fort.
They just pop out of the land fort, and then all of a sudden you just have a bunch of hammer dudes and some mortals. And you can hurt something that's relatively durable pretty quickly with that.
Somebody in the chat pointed out something that I actually was thinking of when I briefly threw together a Votann pressure list a bit back, which is, who's garbage at leading a unit? Uthar, but you know who's kind of not bad at just being a solo homie? Uthar's not bad at being solo by himself.
He reduces damage to 1.
He reduces damage to 1. He also changes, once per turn, change a hit wound roll to a 6, and his melee weapon has devastating wounds. So you roll it, you get a 1 on the wound roll, you flip that to a 6. He does decently consistent damage, as well as being really annoying to remove. He's garbage at leading a unit.
He's 90 points, though.
He is. He will, I believe, consistently do more damage than a 9-Hero champion and survive longer.
I personally prefer spending 25 points on a 9-Hero champion, bringing him to 85 points, to have on a 2-up you come back at full wounds.
That's pretty dope.
I would rather that than Uthar, personally, but...
you do also get style points.
Yes, it is also style points.
For that. But let's get back to our first question here. Are we looking to take more than one unit of Hearthguard?
So do we go the land? These are the routes, because there aren't that many data sheets here. We can go for just more MSU, just have more stuff everywhere. Forget about doing more damage, assume the list does enough, and just get a lot of nonsense in here. Just have stuff everywhere, all over the board. We could go for a land fort with stuff inside, whether that's Hearthguard, whether that's Einhir champions popping out, some other more durable transport that can get void armor and be super annoying to kill, and then put pressure on our opponent. Yeah. We can do that, or we can go for more Hearthguard and have a turn 2 pressure, turn 3 pressure, and just keep the kind of cycle going.
You know what is 15 points more than a champion and 10 Hearthguard? Mm-hmm. A land fort and 5 Hearthguard to go in the land fort. Mm-hmm. There is a possibility that we could do that, take a land fort plus 5 Hearthguard, cut down to 3 mans, take a land fort plus 5 Hearthguard, and probably have enough to put one last thing in the Sagittar. Because we got 180 back. Yeah, that should about work out. Mm-hmm. I believe we could take 20 Warriors, 6 Sagittars, 2 units of 5 Hearthguard, 3 units of 3 Pioneers, 2 Land Forts, and 2 Grimnirs.
I personally lean towards, in the aggressive style, the MSU route. I think more stuff is generally, when I've played Votann, helping people practice, I have typically done better against the stronger armies, like Eldar and Chaos Space Marines, by just having a ludicrous amount of stuff. And just focusing on scoring points.
Well, that makes sense.
Instead of trying to do more and more damage, because honestly, the damage at a certain point either isn't going to see anything, and you run out of stuff to target, or you are going to just have your damage doesn't work into a particular target, like 2-up save, armor contempt. There's not a lot we can add in here that's amazing into it, and just having more stuff is better. More move blocks, more slow them down.
Got it.
Score points.
Another option, I quite like Thunderkin for their points. They're really cheap.
They are very cheap. 75 points for 3 of the bodies, 150 for 6 of them. Obviously, the anti-vehicle 2+ graviton cannon is the strongest weapon.
It is. It's not even a bad, just shooting at infantry gun, right? Especially if you're +1 to hit and +1 to wound. You're hitting on 3s, you're wounding at +1, you put out a lot of shots with blast.
Yep.
For 75 points, it's a pretty decent unit.
So their issue is mobility. So either they come in from strat reserve, and then your opponent has the opportunity to potentially screen them out and push them back from hitting anything useful, and then they trundle up 5 inches and don't do anything. If they start on the board, like if you brought the Iron Master and just wanted to try and trundle up into the middle, then you run up into the Night Spinner or Whirlwind problem, and they just get eviscerated because it's the easiest thing to kill.
You do run into that. Now, I will say, I think a 3-man in reserves is not... If your opponent screens that out, I think you're getting value because...
3-man's totally fine.
Because, what are they... that's why I have Eradicators in... a 3-man Eradicator in decent amount of lists. It's if you screen out that, it's a low enough investment that I'm probably getting value off of you just screening it out.
Yep.
But if you just let it connect, then it gets to connect, and it gets to do what I want with it.
Yep. I don't really like the 6-mans personally. I think against the stronger armies, they're not very good. But I wouldn't mind 3-mans.
I could see just dropping a 3-man in.
And that fits with the stuff approach.
Yeah, because they are annoying to kill with, at speed.
They're not that annoying to kill, trust me.
The thing is, toughness, I can tell you from playing Marines, is a certain critical mass of 3 wound, high toughness, 3-up saves is tough to get through quickly. Yep. You can kill it. Anything can kill Thunderkin if they want, but it's tough to kill them quickly with a throwaway nonsense unit, whereas they are a throwaway nonsense unit. So I like 1 unit of Thunderkin in there. If they screen it out, they screen it out.
So we still need 1 thing to go into the Sagittars, and the options are we can go for another Grimnir, 65 points. and that would finish it. We could go for the Iron Master, which I personally don't like as much. It's more bodies and a bigger screen, and can heal the Sagittars, but doesn't really do much damage, whereas the Grimnir can actually do some decent damage.
Yeah, he can actually do some work.
Yep. And is more durable with the 4-up invul.
I like the Grimnir. He packs a better gun than you would think.
Yeah, when he overcharges 6 shots, strength 6, AP 2, 2 damage.
Obviously, he doesn't have Appraise and Glare.
So he'll be 65 points. And that will mean that the Sagittars, none of them will die, and we're all good there. So then it comes down to how many points we have left.
Yep. So points, we have 145.
145. Talk about awkward number of points.
5-man unit.
So what we can do is we can first start by deciding now if we want the Pioneers or the 2 6-mans and 1 3-man, or do we want 2 3s, 1 6?
I tend to lean towards I want the 3-mans because I don't want them to be doing the hammer job. I want them to be doing the stuff clearing job, because you do need that. If you're pressuring your opponent, you can't, like, you scout move, you move. What you need to do is you need to scrape the board clean of all of, like, the 5-man aspect warrior units. You have to do that.
Yep.
You can't just try to hammer them on strength and leave their skirmish units up, because those skirmish units will screen you out, will tie you up, will hold objectives. You need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Let's go ahead and save. I think 1 6-man still works though.
Sweet. We end up with a decent amount of points back from that.
Yep.
So one of the 6-mans gets out of here, and we still have 1 unit that can scout move up, move and do a lot of work.
Yep.
And we have 235 points left after this.
So that can just get us a land fort, and we'd have 10 points remaining. We could go for, like I said, more nonsense. We can grab 2 more 3-man Thunderkin units. We could grab the Berserks again. We can grab Soline champions, although then we run the risk of potentially giving up Assassinate. But
I will say 6 Sagittars is very funny into fixed, because since they're 9 wounds, but toughness 10, they only give up a 2 on breakdown.
Yeah, this list ain't giving up. They would have to take teleport homers plus Assassinate.
And you box them out of the center pretty decently.
And frankly, you can just hide the Grimnirs all game, and they're like, okay, well, where am I getting my Assassinate points from?
Yeah.
We could get 5 Hearthguard, but I don't really like 5 without the land fort. They don't really do enough by themselves, and they don't have that extra durability because they won't have a character inside.
I like Hearthguard quite a bit. I think if I were writing my own list, I would... So I played against somebody who was running blobs of 6 Thunderkin with the Techo guy in there. I was pretty impressed. Now, to be fair, that was on quarters, and he did deploy on the line and go first.
Yeah.
So that is a scenario where they're going to be a threat, like turn 1 or 2. Whereas if you play on not quarters and you play into like Eldar, you can't just deploy them. That's gonna not end well.
Or the Iron Storm or any of that stuff.
Any of that stuff.
Yeah, any sort of indirect just eviscerates them.
Yes. But something like, if we look at the profiles we have left, because we don't have a lot, right? There's no other dedicated transports. There's no other battle line. Like we start to run out of data sheets.
Yep.
If we look at them, Thunderkin are all right, but we get a decent amount of value out of the first 3, and that's it. Berserks are kind of whatever. Hearthguard are pretty decent. Landfort and Pioneers, and so that's where we can put the rest of our points. If I were writing the list myself, probably I would cut the last 6-man to a 3-man and add in 10 Hearthguard with probably a champion. I think you can get that. But
what are we at right now?
We are at we're at 235, so we would need to cut some amount of points in order to make that work, and that gets a little iffy. That isn't really an MSU approach. That's more of an aggressive approach where you have 20 Hearthguard in reserves ready to just.
I love the 20 Hearthguard.
I know you do. I know you do. How are you feeling on 2 units of warriors? Could we replace a unit of warriors like a Grimnir and something else to go in a Sagittar? I don't know if there is something else.
It would be the Iron Master.
All right. Yeah, not super impressed with that guy.
So I think 4 units of troops is perfectly reasonable. I've found that that's always good. Bunch of OC2 bodies. They're cheap. I don't really care about them.
Yep, 55. They're 11
And they
points
stick
per
objectives.
Guy. Yeah, because you split them up when you put them in the Sagittar.
Yeah.
You could consider leaving a 5-man on foot and taking a Grimnir.
Bless you.
You could consider taking a 5-man on foot and just taking another Grimnir to go in a Sagittar. And that would leave us with probably about 180 left to 35.
If we cut these 3 Thunderkin.
It would leave you 170.
If we cut these 3 Thunderkin and bring the 6-man unit of Pioneers down to 3, then we can get the second brick.
How much do you value taking a second brick here?
I obviously think it's the best way to play Votann, but
It's pretty scary.
it gives you that redundancy where the first unit can be traded, and then the second unit is just like, okay, well, now you're not dealing with 2-up void armor, -1 to wounds.
Yeah, there's also a decent amount that you can you take the Sagittars and the Pioneers and you push them into their deployment zone. Mm-hmm. And then when they are pushed into their deployment zone, they've lost all their nonsense. 20 Hearthguard come down and just say, yeah, you're not pushing back through this wall to get back to the objectives, to get back to the center of the board at a speed that you would like.
Yep.
You know I like that playstyle.
That's what I think is the strongest playstyle, personally.
Yeah. So if you want to go that direction, totally can. Cut the Thunderkin, cut this down to a 3-man.
Yep.
Which these things are just trash hunters. Like they go in, they shoot something to death, some like 5-man swooping hawk unit or something to death, some Nurglings to death, and then they go charge something.
Yep, and they can act as a really good move block. They can just sit in your backfield, do secondaries, and then go back into reserve with the outflank.
And you're thinking another champion?
Yeah, let's see the exact points on that.
Yep. All right, so let's get another blob. Get rid of that. Because we do want a character with them so that they're not... So that they are -1 to wound. We have a solid 100 points left right now.
With bringing the Pioneers down?
Yep.
Okay.
Solid 100. So we could bring the Pioneers back up, but we wouldn't have a character. Not into that.
No, so I would grab a second champ.
Yep. A second hammer.
Yep. And then we'd have 40 points left over. So 40 points doesn't get us anything except for enhancements, which means I think we throw Grim Demeanor and a long list in here and call it a day.
So Grim Demeanor on a champion, just giving you ignore modifiers, which is really good against something like Eldar.
Yep.
Now Eldar's the Night Spinners are pretty good into Hearthguard regardless, because every 6 is just a dead guy, which is unfortunate.
Yep. But they have a lot to deal with before they come in.
They sure do, because you can actually just completely overwhelm Eldar early with this list.
Yep.
So we have Teleport Crest, Hammer, and... could we drop Appraising Glare and get something here that we want? Because it's what, 20 points? That would leave us with...
we would have 60, so the only other option is another champ.
Would you rather have the 3 enhancements or a 9-here champion?
The 3 enhancements.
3 enhancements? Okay. So this would be...
Appraising Glare is just so good.
Okay, so we've got another Einherjar champion, and then we've got... What do we got? Long List and Grim Demeanor, or Wayfarer's Grace?
No, that's the stand back up, but it's 25 points. So we could do that plus a long list, or we get a Grim Demeanor and a long list.
I like Grim Demeanor.
I think I would take Grim Demeanor. If we had the solo champ, then I would like him.
80. Yeah, I mean, Wayfarer's Grace on a solo champ is very good.
Yeah, I just don't think it's
We
necessary.
just don't quite have it.
So yeah.
We just don't quite have the points. So the game plan here is the 6 Sagittars, the Warriors, the Grimnirs, and the Pioneers box your opponent into their deployment zone, sticky every objective. Okay? Kill all of their trash nonsense and put a hurting on some of their tough stuff. Then, as your opponent pushes back, 20 Hearthguard come down and just seal them into their deployment zone. And whether you win the fight or not, your goal is to just keep them in there.
Yep.
There's a box, it's their deployment zone, they stay there. Okay? All the objectives, most of the objectives are out of their deployment zone. So if you just do that, you will win.
Yep.
And that's the game plan here.
And if you don't like the a second run, maybe you don't have access to a second unit of Hearthguard, which is totally possible because they are constantly out of stock. If that's the case, you could go back to the Thunderkin route. That squad is basically 2 6-mens.
Yep. The other thing you can do here, straight swap. If you only have 10 Hearthguard, you can take 2 5-mans and 2 land forts. That would work. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't be as tough, they wouldn't do as much damage, but you get 2 land forts.
They do a good amount of damage with the reroll wounds, though.
That's true. That's true.
But, yep, I really like this archetype for Votann.
I would take Plasma on the Grim Demeanor unit, but they FAQ that doesn't work.
The reason is because with Grim Demeanor, previously you could ignore AP mods and damage mods. In that case, Plasma's really quite strong. But because the recent Atlanta FAQ says that it doesn't work on those things, just your top-line data sheet and hit wound rolls, leadership shenanigans, because of that, it's less effective on Plasma.
Yep. Yes, this is basically Wolf Jail, but instead of just physically trying to block them in, you're trying to take... If you've watched my Jack 3 video from a week or two ago, you're looking to take the front lines and lock it just past their deployment zone. Mm-hmm. And you're looking to have the fighting happen there so that your opponent doesn't have time to get back to the center.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's that. Up next... We've got the Orcs! Etc. All right, so if you want to read this one out, I will go find the...
So this is Brother Tobias with his Wa tribe. He's got the Beast Boss on Squigosaur with Head Wappa's Kill Choppa. Then he's got Boss Snickrot, 2 Beast Bosses, and then a Pain Boss. So a lot of bosses in here. A lot of big bosses.
Oh man, he comments too much. How am I supposed to find it?
I'm seeing very few units in here, and
You're gonna
skip ahead.
It'll make sense at the end.
2 units of Gretchen, cheap little kind of hold your backfield. Then 3 units of Beast Snagaboys. 1 is the large squad, and then 2 are the 10-mans. Then we have 3 Squighog Boys, just an MSU one. 2 Kill Rigs, which just a very good, solid vehicle.
They're all right. They've gotten worse in the edition change, for sure.
Then a Gargantuan Squiggoth at 440. A lot of points in that bad boy.
Okay, so this is his comments. Dear List Fixers, I want to get my friend into competitive, and he wants to take Orcs to his first RTT.
That's awesome.
That is super cool. I played against this list twice. I won once and lost the other game. As the opponent, I felt this list needs more stuff. You are way ahead of me. Solo Snickrot is weird, but he's kind of like the world's worst Calidus assassin. The only absolute condition is the Squiggoth stays in. Thank you for your streams. Well, thank you. No, if you have a Squiggoth, you play the Squiggoth. You don't have that gigantic football of resin. It's bigger than a football, for the record. You don't own that model to just have it be on your shelf when it is remotely good, it is pretty decent right now. So let me just pull up for you what a Gargantuan Squiggoth does, because it does some ridiculous stuff.
I don't know what it does.
Interesting. Well, let me run through. The biggest number here is that it's toughness 13.
Okay.
And because it is not a vehicle, it has access to the Orc strat for -1 to wound.
All right, so it's like a avatar hanging around.
It's like a toughness 13 avatar. So las cannons, they're wounding you on 6s. Okay? It also has 30 wounds. So this thing, Tonka Tough, has a 3-up save, will have cover every single time. The thing is the size, just an insane size.
Can it move on boards?
It can. It can. It can move around. Sometimes it has trouble, but most of the time you will be able to move it around boards decently. Well, you will occasionally have to take a little bit of a curve, but you can. It also gets to walk over all terrain features and models that are 4 inches or less. So all models and terrain features that are 4 inches or less. So that opens up a decent amount of the board for it, especially on like GW style boards.
How fast does it move?
It moves 10, and you can advance and charge once a game. And it has 30 wounds. Mm-hmm. Now here's the thing.
Other defense invuln or anything?
30 wounds with a toughness 13 with -1 to wound.
And save?
3 up. 3 up, and then you have cover a decent amount.
Okay.
So the Squiggoth is great. I legitimately think the Squiggoth is great. It hits very hard. So its melee weapon, first off, it has 6 attacks. They hit on 3s with exploding 6s, and can be 3s with exploding 5s if you want. At strength 14, AP 3, damage 12 with lance. So if you charge, you're wounding everything in the game on 2s. And it's damage 12. And it's AP 3. So if you go into, this thing can flatline 4 armatures at the same time. It's great. So, or if you decide you don't want to do that, you can always attack with 18 attacks at strength 9, AP 2, damage 3. And you can make those exploding 5s if you want for a CP.
Yeah.
So the Gargantuan Squiggoth hits hard enough you can't ignore it. It'll run in, it'll knock over like a Land Raider basically every single time. They fail 2 saves, the thing's dead.
Yeah, flat 12.
Flat 12, gone. I don't care if you have a 5 Feel No Pain, which you can't get. I don't care if you have a 6 up from Black Templars. You're dead. So this thing is a threat that can't really be ignored. So the rest of your list gets a lot of leeway, a lot of latitude there. Because if the Gargantuan Squiggoth is running down main, the rest of your army, like, las cannons aren't going into, like, trucks. Let me put it that way. Because if the Squiggoth hits and gets to hit and keep hitting and keep hitting and keep hitting, they are going to die.
What's its rule?
So it's that's it.
That's it.
That's it. It does not suffer penalties to its hit rolls for making ranged attacks while enemy into engagement range. Its shooting weapons are very bad. It is, well, for its points. It's like, they're like, okay. So if you take the Super Cannon, it's 2d6 shots at strength 12, AP 2, damage 3. At 60-inch range, they hit on 5s with blast. If you take that, you sacrifice some of your transport capacity. You get to take 20 infantry models if you want.
Hence the 20 men.
Hence the 20 men, yeah. And if it has a super cannon, you get 15 infantry models instead. And you can't transport mega armor or jump pack. But you can transport gas for some reason.
So just looking at this is a move, block the Squiggoth, kill everything else type of list when I look at it. And
it can move over models.
Yeah, but it has to end its giant base past that. No. Not happening.
Yes.
So in my head, what I'm thinking here is, in order for if we have to keep the Squiggoth, then we need a lot of stuff around it so that they're overwhelmed. And if they're throwing away all their cheap things, move blocking this, we're working the rest of the table, basically.
Yep. And orcs have a lot of ways to get to screens and kill them as well. They're very good at that. Mm-hmm. I think one Squiggoth is actually quite fine. I think competitively, I think it is viable as a competitive archetype. But I think that Brother Tobias points it out, you need more stuff. You just need more stuff. Mm-hmm. You can't have 3 big, 2 kill rigs with 10 mans inside, plus a beast boss, with a Gargantuan Squiggoth with 20 man inside, plus a pain boss that makes them move further. And that is your whole list.
Yeah, there's way too many characters here.
There's way too many characters. There's way too much of all your eggs are carried in really one big basket, which is not something we're really avoiding here. But in 2 big baskets, 3 big baskets, we're not doing that. So the first things up, we're going to kill these kill rigs. Get them out of here.
You're killing the kill rig?
Killing the kill rig. In addition, the Gargantuan Squiggoth is going to be empty. Or it's going to have some, like, Burnaboys in it that can shoot out of the top. Because it is open-topped a lot. You can also have flash kits in it, shoot out the top. Now, you don't get all your rules, but you don't expose the unit. You get to keep shooting until eventually you want to pop out of the Gargantuan Squiggoth and shoot them at close range with all your rules. That's perfectly viable. The thing that isn't very viable here is having 285 points worth of models in a 440 point model. Because, as Sieg said, you just move block the one guy, and then there's only like 1,200 points to the rest of the list, and you just focus on those. We want to avoid that. So we're going to remove these Beast Snagger Boys wholesale. We might put them back in. But for now, everything around it is going away. Now, here's the thing. I like Gretchen. I like them a lot. They're not leaving the list. We're going to start with 1. Okay? Squighawk Boys are excellent MSU.
Yep.
They're excellent MSU. They're also excellent as 6-mans to rush your opponent down. Both of those are very good. We'll likely be keeping the Squighawk Boys. In addition, I quite like the Beast Boss on Squigosaur because he is tough as nails. Now, if you're going to take a Beast Boss on Squigosaur, I will say, if you're only going to take 1, Mozrog is better. He's tougher, and he hits a little harder. Neither one of them hits particularly hard, but such is life. Boss Snickrot is good. I like Snickrot quite a bit. Let's see where we're at with this. We're keeping the Gargantuan Squiggoth, no questions asked, but we cannot have it be 700 points. Plus. Okay, we cannot have it be like 720 points. It has to be 440, keeping it lean and mean. Okay? So it's got to be cheap so that the rest of the list has as much stuff as possible to exploit the fact that your opponent does not want to target the Gargantuan Squiggoth, but feels like they have to go out of their way to counter it. Mm-hmm. And if they have to go out of their way to counter it, I don't want it to be that rewarding for them to counter.
Okay.
I want it to be like if they don't do anything about the Squiggoth, it will rip them apart. And if they do sacrifice resources blocking the Squiggoth, shooting the Squiggoth, whatever, I want that to feel wasted, not rewarded.
Yeah.
So we're going to cut a lot of stuff here. Personally, I think one of the strongest things that Orcs can do right now is trucks. And that, I know that, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that people, like Orc players, get a little tired of trucks. Because, Orc players love to, like, take their buggies and, wah down mid. But I think trucks are really, really good. They're no longer 50 points, they are 60 points. But still, that is dirt cheap. And you can put a cheap unit in a cheap transport and make it that much more annoying to deal with. So, let's take a look. So, we've got the Gretchen. Let's toss
That's kind
in...
of like hold your backfield easily.
Mm-hmm. Let's toss in some boys.
These are just basic boys.
Basic boys. They're cheap. They're 8.5 points a model. And in a truck, they're 145 for a pretty threatening unit.
Do you think the Beast Snaggers are too expensive?
Beast Snaggers are, in my mind, 20 points for an upgrade of boys to Beast Snagger boys is 20 points to get +1 strength and reroll to hit against monsters and vehicles, which is decent when you have the points for it. So that might be if we have luxury points at the end, that might be something that we do.
Okay.
But a Beast Boss is pretty good. You get reroll to hit with it, and you get Dev Wounds on the charge for just himself, which is pretty good when you're not on the WA. And Sean Little points out 10 boys in a truck is a real threat, especially on the WA turn. Yep. 10 boys is just a lot of attacks for a cheap unit coming out of a shell that keeps them safe. And you can score points like a bastard with it. Like, a truck plus 10 boys is just scoring points. Beast Snaggers also have a 6 affinity. So, I did try a long time ago to take a pain boss so I could heal my beast boss to make my opponent sad. But it turns out if your opponent's trying to put damage into beast boss or Mozrog, they're sad already. And you don't really need to heal them to make them even sadder. Yeah. Because you don't have a unit to put that in that's very, very good. You can put it in Beast Snaggers, but you go down a rabbit hole of, I want to heal my beast boss, so I'm spending 300 points. So we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is we're going to take a fair number of trucks. I think what we're looking to do is what Sieg said, which is we are looking to take the Squiggoth and we're looking to take as much cheap nonsense behind the Squiggoth. That's trucks. There's nothing that this army does better than take trucks. Like if we're looking for cheap nonsense to fill out space, nothing this army does better than trucks.
Just have bodies everywhere.
Just
transports and bodies. Just like look how ludicrously cheap that is.
It's stupidly dumb. It's stupidly cheap, and I love it. It's great. So if we take 6 trucks and we have 1 unit of boys here, we have 695 points left.
And we have to fill the trucks with more boys?
Fill the trucks with more boys. Now, something I want to do before we do that is I do want to include Squigghog boys. I think in 3-mans, I think they're quite good at just being tougher than you want to try to kill, and they will win every skirmish fight forever and ever and ever. Amen. So I think Squigghog boys are quite good. Now, we could end up cutting a unit. Storm boys are also very good at scoring points. They're also very good at randomly like rapid ingressing, and a 5-man will go just kill 10 cultists every time, take an objective, things like that. So you can just leave 1 squad in reserves. If they screen it out, they screen it out. Whatever, who cares? But if they don't screen it out, then suddenly you're killing their 10 cultists, taking their home field, things like that.
Yeah.
So, how many points? Storm boys are 65 for 5, and they're also do secondaries insanely well.
Do they have to go back into reserve?
No, but they do advance in charge natively, and they're very cheap.
65.
Honestly, if I can just fill out the rest of this list with Storm Boys, Squigghog Boys, and Boys in Trucks, that's what I want to do, and you just score your points. But, might not be able to do that. We're not.
So we need 5 more things to go in the trucks, or do the Gretchen fit one of them?
We would need 5 more things. I believe Gretchen need to be on the board. We might not get 6 trucks in this list. I think that would be okay if we did. Or we can cut the Squig Hog Boys, which we might want to. As is, I think something to go in the Squiggoth that's pretty good and good at just clearing screens, or good to go in a truck, probably go in a truck actually, are Flash Gets. I think Flash Gets are really good. They're really strong. You sometimes just need to reach out and touch somebody with some shooting, and they will do that.
Do you run Captain Badrock with them?
Absolutely. You do not run that unit without Captain Badrock. It's the difference between re-rolling hits and not. And considering they hit on 5s with sustained, you really want that. Yeah. So we're going to see where this ends us up.
Flash Gets. And how many points are they?
They are 190, and Captain Badrock is 80. He got cheaper.
What does Boss Snickrot actually do?
So Boss Snickrot, I believe he teleports once. So once per battle, instead of making a normal move, you pull it and put it up anywhere 9 away. He doesn't get a second ability when he's not leading unit, just gets cover. He has Infiltrator and Stealth, and he hits okay in combat. 6 attacks, hitting on 2s with exploding 6s, Strength 6, AP 1, Damage 2, Precision, and Twin Linked.
Gotcha.
He's not bad.
He's okay. 85 points, though, is 10 more boys, so...
Yeah.
Question mark. Badrock is 80, you said?
Badrock is, yes, he's 80. Okay. There we go.
So what does that leave us?
That doesn't leave us with a ton of points. So we will need to make some cuts, because I am not yet at the level where I'm happy with the amount of stuff that we have. So Flash Gets. Whoop. There we go. All right. We have 10 points left. So...
and we have 5 more things that need to go in trucks?
Yes. So some amount of trucks are getting cut, or some amount of Squig Hog Boys are getting cut. And I think it's the Squig Hog Boys first, and we'll see if we can come back to them.
Okay.
So, because stuff in trucks is just really, really good. Okay.
You have the Storm Boys as the skirmishers in this case.
Yeah, they're just cheaper. And I think we're not going to get a full 6 trucks. We might be able to put back in some amount of Squig Hog Boys. Maybe 1 unit of Storm Boys, 3 units of Squig Hogs, something like that. Cut some amount of the trucks. And we are going to add in 2 units of boys. So now we have 3 units of boys in trucks.
1 unit of Flash Kits.
And 1 unit of Flash Kits. And this is still pretty scary. It's not as scary, but it has more stuff. So let's see where that leaves us. 170 points left. I would say I think Snickrot's great. But the world's worst Calidus assassin's not making its way in here.
Yeah.
Something else that I quite like to take up space, and this is a personal opinion, but I'm doing it, so I quite like Mazrog. I think Mazrog is better than the basic guy if you just take him, and he fits this style of everything's kind of a little too tough. Because Mazrog, Scragbad, is a complete jerk to try to kill. Like, just not even close. He's just a jerk. What he does is he has he's toughness 10 with 9 wounds, with a 4-up invuln and a 4-up feel no pain.
Yeah.
And that damage just sinks into that. Especially since if you really try to kill him, you can then go, no you didn't. -1 to wound on that.
Yeah.
And that just absolutely bounces. So I like them just being able to take up space in an area. Now this list here might be reaching a tad bit. Boss Snickrot's gone. We end up with 180 points left. So 180 points gets you a decent amount of stuff, but nothing too crazy. We can get a truck and a unit of boys. Not bad. Don't hate that. We could get... what else was I thinking of? We could cut some amount of Storm Boys and put in some amount of 3-man Squig Hogs, which are also pretty good at taking up space.
What tool do you think is missing here?
I think realistically we just need It's tough, actually. We have 180. I think what I want here is I want a little more punch. A little more durability.
Maybe knobs?
Knobs are not bad. They're a little on the expensive side because you basically really want to include a war boss with them. I think the Storm Boys, actually, to just change the balance of where the of how the stats are looking, I think the Storm Boys are about to become Squig Hogs. And I'm about to go back on what I just said. Because what you're looking to do is you're looking to adjust the numbers, right? Mess with the units, mess with the numbers to get to where you're looking to go. And I think that this list just lacks a little bit of the durability and the skirmish ability. And I think some units of Squig Hogs instead really, really works there. So let's see how many points we get if we do that. I like 3-man Squig Hogs. You're going to just have to deal with a lot of the lists turning into Squig Hog fests if you work with me long enough. I like Squigs. And I will not, I don't care who knows.
Well, they are very good. 110 is on the more expensive side for a skirmisher, but it's still quite solid.
So if I wanted to leave one squad of Storm Boys in, we would be 20 points over without a great way to change that. Now we could just take those Storm Boys and make them Gretchen, and that works really, really well.
Just have 2 Gretchen squads?
Just have 2 Gretchen squads. Gretchen are great, honestly. There's nothing wrong with them. They get you CP for being on objectives, and they are
super good.
Oh yeah. It's on a 4-up, but you can roll for each Gretchen squad you have on an objective. And I believe this should fit exactly. Yep, that fits exactly. So we have 3 units of boys in 3 trucks. I mean, it fits at 1995, but whatever. We have a decent amount of beef to get through if you don't want to go through the Squiggoth. Mm-hmm. We have 3 units of Squig Hogs. We have the Beast Boss and Mozrog, which takes a while to get through. And we have the Squiggoth that is basically always going to get -1 to wound if your opponent points at it. And the fact that you could -1 to wound might mean their anti-tank goes elsewhere. And then you don't have to use -1 to wound. You have multiple targets that can use it. Mozrog, Beast Boss, and Squigosaur can, but don't need to. And the Squiggoth always has it in their back pocket. I see a suggestion here that I quite like. I think if we take 2 Hogs and 2 squads of Storm Boys, I think that is probably about what I'm looking for. Let me just make sure that that fits, but I like that compromise, basically, between having more units that can kind of skirmish and having some beef. So we make sure that that fits. If I take them out and I take the Gretchen, you only really need 1 unit of Gretchen. That does fit, and we actually have some points left.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you know how this goes. Points left. Interesting.
How many points do you have left?
25, nothing crazy. We could take the Gretchen and turn them into more Storm Boys, but I do like something to hold my backfield and screen. We have 25. 25 is an awkward amount. 25 is a very awkward amount.
We can get Boss Snickrot instead of 5 Storm Boys.
I don't like that better, to be honest with you. I think we're going to just go back to where it was. 25 points. I think the 3rd Squig Hog unit is going to just be very annoying to deal with.
Okay.
And so what you have is you have a unit of Flash Kits as well with Captain Badrock in a truck. Nothing starts the game in a Squiggoth, which means you get the kill cannon, which means it does some amount of damage. Which is, that's cool. But you have the Flash Kits with Badrock motoring around. And you're going to be tempted to get them out the first time you can shoot something. But what you probably want to do with them is you want to just keep them in the truck, and you want to avoid your opponent's anti-tank shots, because they will go at that truck first. And you want to just pick up little nonsense. Pick up little nonsense. Pick up little nonsense. And then once the Squiggoth hits, once the Mozrog and the Beast Boss and the Squig Hogs hit, that's when you want the Flash Kits to get out and start shooting. Because they can also get -1 to wound, so your opponent doesn't know where you're going to pop it. They have to take their movement phase to line up shots, and when you know that they're maybe not lining up shots on the Squiggoth, or they're not lining up shots on the Beast Boss or whatever, but they are lining up shots on the Flash Kits, and you're like, alright, the Flash Kits are -1 to wound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Threat overload is exactly what Orcs are all about.
Yep. I actually think this list is quite good. Now, it's basically the list I was, we're going to be recording a game at some point soon. It's basically the list that I was going to run, except minus 2 squads of boys, minus 2 trucks, minus 3 units of flash kits, plus a Squiggoth. And the Gargantuan Squiggoth is very good. So, I think this list could be great. Remember, you have plenty of units here that want to focus on scoring, not necessarily killing. So boys and trucks after the boys get out, a lot of the time want to be doing homers, want to be cleansing objectives, things like that. And you'll get your points that way. Squig Hogs want to be doing secondaries and contesting and skirmishing in about equal numbers.
Yeah. All right. Well,
all right.
Hopefully Brother Tobias enjoys this for his friend who's getting into Orcs and getting into competitive 40K.
Yeah. Good luck to your friend at his first event, and glad to have him here.
Yeah, definitely. And go Gargantuan Squiggoth. We need a kill count on that guy.
Big Squig! I was arguing for a bit for the Gargantuan Squiggoth on our WTC team, or at least for testing it out.
Yeah.
It is legitimately annoying to kill 30 wounds at toughness 13 with -1 to wound. Alright. Tau.
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 So this is for Turk Smash. He submitted his Tau list here, and did he say anything about his list?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
So while you're pulling that up, we've got a Cold Star Commander with the Ion, as well as Shield. I assume it's 4 Cyclic Ion and Shield Drone, Marker Drone.
On the
Cold Star.
On the Cold Star. The Cold Star is 3 Cyclic Ions, one Shield
Gen.
One Shield Gen.
Okay. And then probably Shield Drone, Marker Drone. Example of the Kalyan, so that Kalyan starts on the unit he's leading, turn 2, which is obviously very strong. Commander Shadow Sun for the reroll 1's aura, and also for her potential CP regen. Commander Farsight for +1 to wound when their enemy is close. 10 Breachers, 10 Pathfinders, Devilfish. 2 units of Tetras. 2 Broadsides with the anti-tank weapons. We've got 3 Crisis Suits with Cyclic and Fusion.
Yep.
2 units, 2 Ghost Kills, 1 with Fusion, 1 with Cyclic, 2 units of Stealth Suits, 1 unit of Crew Hounds, 5 Vespid, as well as a Piranha and a Hammerhead. So like a real variety, a real eclectic mix here of a lot of different stuff.
Yes.
None of which is particularly bad. Like everything here is competitive in my mind.
Yep. I think it's mostly about finding... This feels kind of like a one of everything build.
Yep.
And I think we want to
Highlander.
focus it down a little bit. The comment was, long story short, I need tools to handle tanks and high aggro melee. Vespids seem pretty good for the ever-present rapid ingress threat against those who want to hold backfields with sticky objectives and rhinos. And Hammerheads help to handle Redemptors. I like 3-man crisis teams to avoid battle shock tests while the character is alive.
So that isn't as much of a concern for me because effectively you should have 1 crisis unit that wants to strike and fade every single turn, besides if you go first. So if you go first, you just take a turn off, and then turn 2 onward, strike and fade pretty much every single time, and that requires a 6-man, because it's not really that efficient on a 3-man with Cold Star.
Yes.
I really like having 1 6-man here to be that role. The Tau needs some sort of hammer unit that can just do overwhelming damage into some big targets.
It's kind of like the Gargantuan Squiggoth here, in that you have an MSU strategy where you're carpeting the board in units because you have very cheap units, but you get 1 unit that is the center of the swarm that can go problem solve.
Yep.
So if your massive units have issues with this or that or whatever, the 6-man crisis unit comes in and says no more problem.
Yep. You need something that threat projection that it brings is enormously valuable for Tau.
Yep. We have a pair of super chats I would like to get to. First up, we have Steven Silverstein, $5 super chat. Says, Richard, in lieu of being on Fix My List Ever, building a list for Catan plus Reanimator plus stuff, picking between a warrior or Lichguard brick plus support, and why.
So thanks so much for the super chat. If your board control is going, or your like damage / board control is going to be the 4 Catan, then I would probably go for... I typically prefer the Lich Guard right now because there are so many tools for killing warriors in the meta. Warriors just don't stand up that well. I think you need multiple warrior units if you want to go the warrior direction, is how I feel about it. I think you need at least 2 20-mans so that if they put out their aggressor brick, they put out their, whatever...
Khorne Berserker
unit, the 10-man unit, that can just have the volume of attacks to do it. You then need to kill that and then bring out the second one. Yeah. And then the second one is what they can't deal with. So I think for warriors, you would need the redundancy there, whereas... as a solo brick, I think Lich Guard are fine.
I think Lich Guard are pretty fine. They do have a problem with getting, with not being able to punch their way out of problems. So they're durable. So it takes.
It's
your
for
opponent.
Catan though, so they're gonna. Help.
Oh right, yes.
They're gonna help punch the way out. So they actually help buddy up with the Lich Guard. But that's the main reason I would go Lich Guard, is that Lich Guard as a single brick, they can force out that durable thing. They might die, they might not. But warriors. There are enough units in the game, the 10 Hearthguard like we saw, that will kill them. You need redundancy in Warriors. Especially because Warriors require so much investment with a Ghost Arc. You really want the Reanimator, you want a Lord in there, all these characters. It's a lot of points, and if you're already spending the points on all that support, you might as well bring another unit at least.
Yep. Okay. Second super chat we've got from Red Rum, €5. Curious, where are you moving to? Will you have a bigger setup for games and streaming? Also, do you know what your pods are for the Worlds? So answering them in reverse order, we do not know yet, I believe, what our pods are for Worlds. List submission was 15 minutes ago, so all of our lists are in, hopefully. Ours are. Yeah. John was still waffling as of the time that this video went live, and my guess is he still is. But, we won't know until we get out. As far as pods, we don't know. They're going to reveal it at some point in the future. They wanted us to do list submission first.
Yep, they haven't said anything about it, but it'll be exciting to see. I would probably do a video breaking that down.
That would be very good, yeah.
In terms of moving, no set date or anything. So we will, whenever we do in the future, we will let people know.
Yep.
But no news as of yet.
Yep. Okay, so back to the town.
Mm-hmm. So, went through all the list here. Like I said, I think the first thing we do is 3 and 3 crisis become 6 crisis.
Yep, just melt them together.
Yep.
Okay, so that you have one problem solver unit that gets all of your support. A second unit can't get all of the support, right?
Yep. And the Cold Star is that you give it that threat projection with the potential 18-inch move, advance, and then you also have Strike and Fade is super efficient on it. All the benefits, and getting Kal Yun turn 2 on it means you can still do a ton of damage to things.
Now, what weapons would you give it?
I prefer having more fusion than cyclic, because effectively with cyclic, against anything that is usually higher than strength 8, but possibly even strength 8, you want to overcharge, because you get the extra AP. Sometimes the extra damage isn't necessary, but the extra AP does really matter quite a bit, especially before turn 3 when you can pop the strat for +1 AP within 9. So I have found that if you run the max cyclic, you're basically killing your unit over the first couple turns, and late game you don't really have a power hitter anymore. Whereas if you only run a handful of cyclic, you still have a good amount of cyclic shots, and then you have another weapon that can help against other targets. And I think fusion is the one that helps the most, because it's strength 9, so you get that extra strength, and it's AP 4, and there's ways to +1 AP, like I said. AP 4 ignores cover, or AP 5 ignores cover. Turn 3 onward, if you use the strat, is very scary for some of those targets where you want the hammerhead.
And you can take 4 cyclic, right? I may have just yeah. Oh, can you get that with?
Not with the shield gen.
Do we want a shield gen?
No. If they precision out if they charge and precision out the commander, it's less attacks going into the unit. It's not the end of the world, so I don't really care. I want the max damage from the commander. Generally.
How about breakdowns on shield gens versus anything else?
Yeah, so we're going to go with 2 shield gens and 4 battlesuit support systems, which is the fallback and shoot. And the thing is, when you have 1 6-man, that is your baby. You protect the baby at all costs. So your screens, your positioning, all that is going to make sure that it's not taking much damage in return, so it doesn't need tons of shield gens.
Okay.
And even against the indirect fire that's common in the game, you don't really need more. That you're going to take a 4-up against the higher AP stuff anyway.
Yes. So looking at this, we have a Commander Farsight who has no home right now. And other than that, we are still at 2,000 points. So what's your next take?
Yep. So in turn, we don't need 2 Ghost Keels.
Which one would you keep if you're going to keep one?
I'll keep the fusion one, because generally they're going to be in the middle of the table, and I don't want to hazardous wounds off my ghost skill.
Okay.
Although I like the 6 shots at flat 3 damage, but
if they're also having problems with vehicles and aggressive armies, the fusion collider one's probably the better one to keep.
Yep, it definitely is. And then stealth suits, we don't need 2 of them for sure, so we can just axe 1 immediately.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Commander Farsight versus Anva is the question. In a board control style, so this Turk Smash is saying that he's struggling against tougher units, right?
Struggling against specifically tanks and high aggro melee.
High aggro melee. Bless you.
Thank you.
All right, so against they're going to require 2 different tools here. One for the tanks. Farsight is a very good anti-tank unit. Him and a fusion 3-man of crisis suits
just comes in and vaporizes.
Comes in from rapid ingress, vaporizes something. So that is a very good tool that we can use to delete tanks. That plus the 6 crisis suits plus maybe the hammerhead, but no. I get people are using the hammerhead for like anti-redemptor tech, and it is a efficient platform for that role. But as soon as an opponent adds an invuln in, then you're looking at probably not doing anything.
Yeah. So, or you just miss, or you fail to wound.
It's very efficient. It's +1 to hit against monsters and vehicles, and then can be +1 ballistic skill with being guided.
So it hits on a 2, reroll.
And then has a reroll to hit or wound.
Yeah. So I played Hammerheads at WTC a year and a half ago. I had 2 of them. One of them was Farsight, or was not Farsight.
Long Strike.
Long Strike, thank you. If he ain't Long Strike, I'm Gone Strike. That's just how life is. But that had a hit, reroll a hit and a wound. And even there, it was just... The thing I found, this is a different edition, different unit, but it's the same paradigm of if you have to plan your turn as though they do nothing, right? Because they're not like 6 shots that do some damage. So even if you don't kill a rhino, you're still going to do like 6 to it. This is if this doesn't do anything, it does literally nothing. So you have to plan every one of your turns like it's going to do 0 damage. Mm-hmm. And that just sucks.
Yeah.
So
I prefer broadsides to the hammerheads personally, and I know you're shocked. Wow, me supporting broadsides over hammerheads. The reason is because they can actually act as killing a bunch of things. They don't have to just be anti-tank. They have all the missile drone shots and the plasma shot, along with the once per game seeker. They have a good volume profile where they can just come down and like 5 Terminators or, like Exalted 8-bound, something like that. They can just come down and put enough damage into it. Whereas a hammerhead,
it's killing one dude very dead.
Maybe. You might make
Possibly.
You might make the save. The Seekers probably will. But like they're not going to kill it. It's not going to kill a squad. And then the other thing is the hammerhead is completely useless against Eldar, where they're going to fate dice that away every time. And I don't think Tau want any weaknesses against Eldar, so it gets cut.
I would say yes. I think the other thing is broadsides are much tougher to kill and have more than 1 shot. Seeker missiles, whatever, but they also have 2 Seeker missiles. Rail rifles fire 4 shots, you have the missile shots, you have the plasma rifle shots, and then the hammerhead just doesn't.
The other thing is, if you're playing on Games Workshop terrain, getting angle, you'll sit in the firing angles with the hammerhead, that's fine. But as soon as your opponent is being crafty and keeping things hidden behind behind terrain in the middle, you're never really getting an angle with the hammerhead. With the broadsides, you almost always bring them in from strategic reserve, so they at least threaten screens to come out. You kill the screens, and then eventually either you come in from rapid ingress, or your opponent has exposed enough that you can just kill it.
Yeah. So, looking at this, we have 350 points. Where do we want it to
go? So, the other question... So, I want to add a 3-man fusion unit here.
Sounds good.
Of battle suits, and that's going to go with Farsight. And that's our anti-tank covered. Okay. This is going to be all fusion.
Yep,
all
so
fusion
triple fusion.
Yep.
And then...
shield gens.
All shield gens.
Yep. If this unit gets tied up...
First off, you have Farsight in there.
Yep. But if it gets tied up, they'll just shoot from there. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. But they're going to come and hit a target, and they're probably going to kill the target that they really need to.
They also rapid ingress very well.
Yep.
So I like that.
All right. Now we need screens. So the other issue that came up was the screening issue. So we need bodies. We need like 10-man units to screen out and protect ourselves.
So I think something that's very powerful right now that they are not really leveraging in this list is breacher fish. Mm-hmm. I think breacher fish are quite good. I think that's probably where you were going to go, but I wanted to
It definitely is.
To get the jump on you there.
So it's 10 bodies. They have a variety of shenanigans. If they're within 3 of a transport, they can get back into it. They can -2 to charge and force a battle shock on an enemy when they declare the charge. They are just 10 dudes. They're -1 to wound and shooting with the Guardian drone, and then they get reroll wounds if the opponent's on the objective. So they really punch up against the cheap stuff that stands on objectives.
Yeah. And we have 170 points left, and a breacher fishing is 165.
Yep, so we can just add in 10 more breachers and another devilfish. Okay, so I'm still not satisfied.
No, I didn't think you would be with this.
So Shadow Sun, I have run her many times. The thing about her is, in theory, she is a 6-inch aura of reroll 1s, which means you get reroll 1s on a lot more things than you otherwise would, because Tetras can only guide. If you have 2 Tetras, 2 things get guided.
That sounds dope.
So it sounds very good, except for the fact that Tau just play MSU. They play all the parts of the board, and you're going to only be benefiting 1 unit. And in that case, the Tetras are going to do that job. So I don't think Shadow Sun is necessary. And you're usually taking tactical, so the CP regen isn't quite as valuable either.
Okay.
So 100 points saved there.
Yep. So we have 105 because we were 5 points under.
Yep. Piranhas are cool, but I have found increasingly that they're just not needed. I think there are better tools because they're never going to really do damage. It's a 55 cheap scout unit, but I'd rather have your screening issue is that you don't have enough bodies to block the charges of Chosen or whatever. You need bodies. You need physical. You need to be taking physical space.
I search for dudes, and I do not find them.
So get rid of them and get rid of the Vespid.
Vespid, really?
Vespid are cute, but I don't think they're necessary.
So we're looking to really narrow the list down on the things that perform.
Yes. Because as soon as you look at Vespid at 75 points, that's a Devilfish. Or if we find a handful of points, we get 10 breachers instead.
Sounds like we're going to a 3rd breacher fish
yep.
unit. And also just being in cheap transports with cheap bodies and whatnot.
The thing about Tau
is just very good.
Is that most of these lists are going to give up Bring It Down regardless of how you write them. So just assume your opponent's going to get 20 at some point on Bring It Down, and then they're going to take some other thing. They can't take Assassinate here because we have 2 characters, and who cares if they take that? They're going to take probably Deploy Teleport Homers. Which means we need pressure in the middle of the table to at some point either kill the stuff that does that or move block the spot where they want to go and safely do it.
Got it. So
we need things.
We need things. So we've got 70 points left after this.
Yep. So we can go ahead and I personally think that we probably cut the stealth suits, even though we're going to use rapid ingress and they give a free rapid ingress. When you look at 20 more points getting you 2 more Tetras.
Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
Got it. So we've got, because 2 Tetras, if it's 1-to-1, are definitely better than stealth suits. If we have points, then let's go.
Yep.
So there we have 50 points left.
Okay. Then the last thing we can do is, so Crude Hounds are fine as a cheap unit, but we can cut them to get a different set of bodies. And the options here are we go for the 80-point strike team, and it's just 10 bodies that can be thrown out. It's not going to do any damage on like breachers, but...
Are we looking at the Farstalkers?
Or we could go for the Kroot Farstalkers, who are 12 bodies, who can string out all over the place and have infiltrate, so they start up there, and I quite like that.
Okay, let's do that. So we've got that. There's 70 points, so we're going to be 10 under, which is totally fine. Not a big deal there.
Yep. And they also look really cool.
They also do look really cool.
This is where I would go. So you have 2 problems: killing tanks, screening charges from hitting your good units. So right now we have the 6-man unit with a bunch of fusion and some cyclic with the Cold Star. Then we have Farsight's 3-man fusion unit, and then we also have a Ghost Keel fusion. Not really going to rely on the damage there, but it can help pick off things.
It helps hold a side objective
pretty well. And we got the broadsides. We got 3 anti-tank killers, all of which can be supported by Tetras when needed. And then in addition to that, our issue with the melee, now we have 10 Pathfinders, 10 Farstalkers, both of which can infiltrate because we'll give the Pathfinders the recon drone. We've got the, and then 30 Breachers. So we have 50 bodies, dudes, that can be our screens.
Dudes.
They can do an action, they can do some damage, they can, block off ruins so that your opponent without fly can't charge through them. This is enough stuff to solve both of your problems.
Yep. All right. So that, I think, is all of the lists for today.
So hope you enjoy that one, Turk Smash. Let me know what you think. And let us know what you think of these lists in the comments below. What changes would you have made? What changes did you think you might see here or wanted to see? And then also give us a like and please subscribe to the channel. All of that massively helps, as well as tell your friends about the stuff we do week in, week out. Like Fix My List. Tomorrow's Build a List is where we kind of build a list from scratch to be played on stream the following week. So hopefully you'll tune in. I believe it's Chaos Demons, which is getting built.
That sounds right to me. Let me double check really quickly. It is Build a List Demons, yes.
All right, and what is that Worm stream game that's being released today?
The Worm stream game would be John's Tyranids versus Quentin's Eldari. So that is a tournament prep list if I've ever seen one.
Yep, sounds like a very strong tournament kind of top table contender list. So John's Nids, which won Crucible, versus Quentin's competitive Eldari list. So if you want to check it out, head over to the War Room, thewarroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. Or if you prefer signing up on YouTube, there's a tiered membership system, and the gold tier will get access to all of it. So please do check us out. Really appreciate everybody's support. Hope you enjoyed this Fix My List. And please join us tomorrow at same exact time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, for Build a List and Chaos Demons.
Absolutely. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great one, and we'll see you very soon.